Hi guys, this video is just going to be a very brief look at the worksheet that I'm having you do today. And this activity is really to have you start getting into and thinking about understanding others. So I'm roughly calling this the Exploring Culture Day. There is a worksheet. Please go ahead and make sure you've downloaded that worksheet, work through it with me. If you get to the end of the video before you finish doing the work, if you don't do the pauses where I tell you to, it'll ruin some good surprises. So stick with me to the end, but do the stuff as we go. All right? So, we're just going to start right away with the first article, the Nasarima. This is an older article, so it's a bit dated in the way that it looks at this culture. But I'd like you to go ahead and just take a look at it, try to understand how the Nasarima society functions. List 10 adjectives to describe the Nasarima. I'd like you to really think about what you have in common with these guys, and also what do you find strange as you encounter this culture. So go ahead and pause now, do the worksheet, and come back. Okay, have you read the Nasarima? They're interesting, right? There's this is a study that was done when anthropology and ethnography was when ethnography was a really big thing in anthropology. A lot of studies like this were done of a lot of different kinds of cultures. And I think people were really trying at that time to just see what was going on in the cultures they encountered and doing their best to understand and describe what they found. So let's go ahead and move on. The next one is going to be a slightly shorter article on a being called the Sacred Rock. And these are really, really interesting animals, and their role in society, I think, is something that can feel a little strange to us as we get into it. So I'll have you guys read that article about the Sacred Rock. This is an animal used primarily by a group called the Asu, or at least that's where it was studied. I think it's a lot more widespread than the Asu themselves. But the Asu definitely, the rock is a huge part of their culture. So go ahead and think about that role of that animal, that sacred animal, in the Asu's lives. And then I'd like you to think in writerly terms between these two articles. The article on the Sacred Rock is much more recent than the article on the Nasarima. So think about the style. What do you notice about the way these people have approached studying these cultures? How does the approach that they've taken impact how you understand these cultures and what you think about them? Definitely compare the style of writing about the Asu to the style of writing about the Nasarima in terms of how these authors understand the cultures that they have studied. So I'll have you guys go ahead and go read the article, fill out your worksheet, and come back. Pause now. Okay. Have you done the worksheet? Read the articles? I am totally serious that you should not go on with this lecture until you finish those articles, because our analysis of these articles is going to really significantly impact the way that you understand them. And part of what I want you guys doing with this is really coming at these cultures fresh, coming at these articles fresh, and really thinking about the way that these authors are understanding their world and understanding the way that other cultures work and other people find their place in the world. So do the reading before you keep going. Okay, let's go ahead. So what if I told you that the Nasarima and the Asu are both studies of Americans, done as though the researchers were foreign anthropologists coming into the culture for the first time? When I pulled up this slide over the summer, I had a student who said, "I'll never trust you again." So if any of you are feeling like that, I'm sorry. But the reason I wanted you guys to go ahead and take a look at these articles, not knowing what they were entirely, is that I think seeing the way that these authors approach the culture and kind of thinking about our responses to that and the way that we try to fit those descriptions into our worldview before we understand what these things are, is a really, really valuable tool as we get into this unit. Both of the upcoming articles will really ask you to think about the author's experiences and some of the experiences that they talk about, especially the experiences that Apaya talks about, will not be things that are super familiar to us. But I think that part of really thinking about the way that people place themselves in the world and understand themselves from a larger perspective is kind of being aware of what we see as the things that we do and the things that other people do and how those things connect and kind of where our ideas of strangeness come into play and how they can be impacted and come into play. So I hope you guys had fun with that activity. I absolutely love the Nasarima. It's definitely, like I said when we were looking at it, it's an older article. It's I'm working off my memory right now, but I believe it's from the 50s or 60s. So there are some things that are probably a little weird to you, even looking back at it with the eyes of a modern American. Things like those places that the women go to bake their heads. And just think about videos you see of women in hairstyling salons from the day. So this is also kind of an interesting thing in terms of thinking about history. And certainly not the first time we've done that. So have a good weekend. I will see you next week for our first big article towards the final paper, which is the Kwame Anthony Apaya. Go forth and be epic.